I'm Stephanie Yi from Math with Miss Yi, and I'm really excited to share with all of you one of my favorite tools that I've used for the last 2 years in my math classroom. My iPad. I love using my iPad. I started using it because I realized that I was spending a lot of time in the front of the classroom when I really wanted to be circulating and checking in with students as they were working. What I love about my iPad is that it can be connected wirelessly in the classroom and allows me a lot of freedom in motion. Not only am I able to move around, but I can also annotate, take notes, and teach the lesson as I'm doing so. For this school year, I still plan on using my iPad. Obviously, that will look a little different as my school is moving to a remote learning environment. But I'm excited to share some of the strategies that I have for just setting up my iPad as an interactive whiteboard in that remote learning system. So let's get started. Today on our agenda, we're going to start with talking about the different devices you need for this to work. Then we're going to talk about my favorite applications on my iPad. I'm going to show you my tech setup at home and what I suggest for teachers who plan to use an iPad this school year in their remote learning system. Then we'll talk about how to annotate on an iPad, and I'm going to walk you through how I set it up in my iPad so that way I can take notes and teach while circulating in the classroom. I'm going to show you how to screencast both in the classroom if we return and do live lessons, and also virtually using the most popular video platforms for teachers. And we'll end with a few other apps that you can use on your iPad. So what do you need in order for this to work? There's currently 2 versions of the Apple Pencil. So this is the first generation. It's a little more circular, it's glossy, and has a removable cap here for the charge. This is the Apple's 2nd generation pencil. It's matte, it has a flat bed right here, and it charges by attaching magnetically to the iPad. Based on whichever pencil you want, you can then use the appropriate iPads or purchase the appropriate iPads. So for the past 2 years, I've used this iPad here. This is the iPad Pro 10.5-inch version. Sorry, there's a text message on here. Oops. But I love it. It's great. It's really easy. I also purchased a cover as well, which comes with a pencil case holder right here. My husband recently got me the iPad Pro 11-inch edition, which is this one here. This is compatible with the 2nd generation pencil. And so, as I said, it does magnetically attach to the side right here. The reason I upgraded was because he wanted one to use for work. Otherwise, I would have been fine just sticking with this. This has lasted me 2 years, and I think it can work for a lot longer. Just make sure before you purchase your iPad that you're checking to make sure the device is compatible with the pencil. In addition to the device itself, you might consider getting a few different accessories. One of the accessories I would recommend if you are purchasing the 1st generation Apple Pencil is to get a pencil grip for it. So it would just cover the entire pencil and it encloses the top as well. Because this top comes off, so that way you can charge the pencil, it tends to get lost and broken. Not easily, but it has. And so I would get a grip for that. Because it's circular, as you can see, it is a little harder to grip and doesn't feel as natural. And so the grip, if you purchase it, helps with that as well. For the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, I don't think you need one. It's matte. It also has a nice grip right here with that flat edge, and it charges just by attaching to your iPad. So I think that is fine. On my original iPad Pro, this one here, I didn't get a screen protector, so it's still the glossy original material. On my brand new iPad, I did get a screen protector because I wanted to make sure that I was protecting it. The screen protector I got is a paper screen protector, so it does give a little bit more resistance when you write on it, which does make it a little easier. Even though I didn't get one for this one here, I think it still held up very well, even with some drops. However, it is a lot smoother to write on here, and there's not as much resistance, so it does take some getting used to. I think the way I wrote on that definitely doesn't look as nice as if I were to write it on with pen and paper. iPad cover, I just got a simple one for the first generation Apple Pencil. I would recommend something where you have a pencil holder. I have accidentally misplaced my pencils as a result, and so that's why I got the pencil holder. For this one, with your second generation pencil, I wouldn't think you would need it as much. It would be helpful to have, so that way it doesn't get lost, because this is magnetic, so it pushes off pretty easily. But I would say get a case regardless of what you do. Other things you can get, I don't have these, but you can get a keyboard, so that way your iPad can be used as a computer. And then also an iPad stand. I don't have one, but it is something I'm considering. But an iPad stand would just lay on your desk, and it would allow your iPad to just sit a little bit higher. So that way it's a little more comfortable for you to write. And so if you are planning to use primarily your iPad, these are accessories you can add on. Okay, let's talk about my favorite apps. So the top 3 apps that I use all the time are Notability, Procreate, and Google Drive. What is Notability? Notability is not a free app. That really threw me off guard when I first realized that, because at that point I had always gotten all of my apps for free, and I was like, what is this? I need to spend $10 for an app? So it took me a while to convince myself that I needed it. But it's an app where you are able to take PDF files and annotate onto those files. If you think about it, if you were to buy a notebook or a planner, it can add up to around $10. So I think Notability, if you're using this for the long term, it's a good investment. I use Notability to annotate my worksheets digitally. So when I'm in the classroom, that's how I teach. That's where I teach from. Procreate is a drawing app. Procreate is pixel based. So the images that you create won't be as clear as if you were to create a vector, but it does its job. I created a lot of different things with it. All of my geometry clip arts, my laptop clip arts are all created on Procreate. It does take a while to get used to. So I've had it for 2 years, and it wasn't until recently during quarantine that I really started to learn how to use it. For Procreate, I would recommend getting a screen protector because it just creates more resistance on the screen and makes it a little easier to draw with. But again, it's not necessary. Procreate is also not a free app, which also threw me in for a loop. I think it's like $10, $15, but again, it's worth it if it's something that you're going to use a lot. Google Drive is a free app. It is a shared file storage space across computers and devices. How I use it is I always create my worksheets on my laptop because that's just how I'm comfortable creating material. After I create my worksheets and lessons on my laptop, I'll save it as a PDF file, upload it to Google Drive, and that's how I access those files on my iPad. My setup. So I know with a lot of teachers going back to school with remote learning, people are trying to figure out, how should I set up my workspace? I don't have the perfect solution, but having sat in PD the last few days and just being stressed by like all the tabs and all the browsers and the Zoom and the chats, like everything that you need to have open as a participant, like that stressed me out. I'm thinking about as a teacher, like leading those sessions, what that will feel like. And I think my solution and what I'm gonna try is having a few different screens up and ready. So in the PowerPoint, you can see on my iPad, this is where I plan to log into my Zoom sessions. Zoom is the platform that my school is using, so that's what I will be using for my lessons. On the iPad, that's where I'll lead the lessons. And on my laptop, I'm going to sign in to Zoom as a separate account, and that's where I'm going to see my student view. This allows me to troubleshoot any issues on the student end, so that way I can very clearly see what the problem might be. My laptop is connected to another monitor. I feel really lucky that I have this because my husband needed one for his work, and I ended up taking it over because I went into remote learning. So I do feel very lucky that I have this. And the second monitor will just be for any other information, documents, classwork, homework that I might need open as we're on the Zoom call. If you plan to use an iPad, I think you should make sure you at least have your iPad and also a separate device both logged in, so that way you can just make sure things are pushing into Zoom or Google Meets correctly. Okay, let's talk about annotating. So the purpose of annotating on your iPad is so that you can write on your worksheets just like you do in the classroom on a document camera. The way I go about being able to annotate on my iPad is as follows. As I said before, I always create my worksheets on my laptop, so then I'll save it as a PDF to my Google Drive. Then I'll use my iPad, log into Google Drive from my iPad, find the document, and on the top right corner, click three dots, click Open In, and then click on Notability. You want that file to be imported into your Notability app. Once you click on import, it'll automatically send it over, and now you want to open up your Notability app. From there, find the PDF you imported, and you're good to go. That should be all you need to do to set up your iPad for annotation during a lesson. So I just clicked into my Notability app, and this algebraic expressions packet is what I had downloaded from my Google Drive earlier. So this is what it looks like. It has all the practice for this unit. If I were using this with students, I would just open it up and I would use the tools that they have here. You can choose different sizes for the pens and different colors as well. And these are just two different styles that you can use for the pen. Right, so that maybe you need something a little thinner. 5 and square, and just play around based on your style. There's also a highlighter tool, eraser, the cut, and then a bunch of other tools that you can use as well. In Notability, you do have the ability to organize your notes. I had started to organize my notes by modules, but I wasn't very effective with it. So I ended up just having a whole bunch of notes in my all notes. Luckily, I tended to not go back into the notes after I finished teaching it. So that's part of the reason why I didn't do a great job organizing, because I knew I wouldn't go looking for them again. So there's all of my unfiled notes. You can organize them by these like color subjects, and you also have these like topics as well. These were my math notebooks, so this was the only place I went back to consistently. So this is where I took notes with students, and this way if they missed any days, they would be able to come back and just double check what notes they missed. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. Other tools that you might be able to use, one thing I did do a lot with my iPad in the classroom was using the camera tool. So if there were any students who I felt had really great work, I would take a picture of it and just add it using my photo library into the slide. So let's say I want this picture in my slide, and there it is. And so this is a really great way if you want to show student work to just have that in your notes. If you want to move around your image, you can just hold it, and you'll see those boxes on the edge appear, these, oops, right there, the little square things, and then it allows you to resize, it allows you to move your image around as well. And how I use this, as I said before, was if I see student work, I'll take a picture of it and just import it straight into my Notability app. That way we can talk about the strategies that was used, what we noticed, what we wonder as a class. And so that's super helpful to have in the classroom. Now that you have the lesson on your iPad, how are you going to make it project in the class or on Zoom or Google Meets for students? So we're going to start just by talking about how I do this in the classroom. So that way, if or when we all return to school, you have the tools to still be able to use your iPad to teach. So there's two ways that I've used before. The first way is AirServer, and the second is using an Apple TV. AirServer is an application you can download onto any computer software. It's a universal mirroring receiver, which means you can AirPlay to it, you can connect an Android device. Any sort of device can be connected to AirServer, as long as it has the ability to mirror screens. I specifically use AirServer to AirPlay my iPad to my school laptop. So last year my school provided us with a laptop that ran on Windows. And because it was Windows device, I wasn't able to AirPlay it directly to the laptop. So AirServer allowed me to still AirPlay it to the laptop through their program. The advantage of using Screencast is that it's portable and can be used anywhere as long as you have your laptop. So the primary reason I chose AirServer last year was because I was teaching in 3 different classrooms. And so I needed a way for me to be able to take my laptop and take all my materials and quickly set up in the next room without plugging in too many wires. AirServer is also super affordable. Using your teacher email address, you can get AirServer for less than $12. Disadvantages of AirServer that I found a little tricky was that, one, it was a little hard to connect sometimes. Sometimes my connection to the application dropped, and it's a little unclear if it was like my school internet issue or the program itself. With AirServer, you still have a lot of wires because you still need to connect your laptop to the projector, and you need to make sure all of that was set up before connecting your iPad. And so there was it was still a little messier than I would have liked it to be. If you plan on using AirServer, these are the steps you need to follow. So the first thing you want to do is go to airserver.com, click on products, select the system that you use. So whether you're on a Mac or you're on a Windows, choose the one that applies to you. Click try or buy. Make sure you click on educational license. This will give you an education discount. Then check out and install it to your device. Once you have it installed, it's pretty straightforward. I think they do a really great job going through those steps for you. But if you have any questions, feel free to let me know and I can walk you through that as well. The second way I've screencasted in my classroom is using an Apple TV. So an Apple TV, if you haven't used one before, allows you to stream internet videos to a TV or a monitor. Apple TV also allows for AirPlay to any of their Apple devices. So using an Apple TV, you can AirPlay your laptop, your iPhone, or your iPad. Things I really liked about having an Apple TV to AirPlay is that it was really reliable. It was very infrequent that the connection to my iPad would drop. The Apple TV also requires a lot less wires. In my classroom 2 years ago, I had my Apple TV sitting on top of my projector. It was taped on top of my projector, and the HDMI cord just plugs straight into the projector itself. And so I sat there at the beginning of the year and didn't touch it until I left. At that time, I also used a MacBook given by the school. And so I was able to use my laptop to just project to the Apple TV as well. So it's really easy if you run primarily Apple devices to just use the Apple TV. The disadvantage to Apple TV compared to AirServer is that it is a lot pricier. AirServer will cost you less than $12 to set up. Apple TV will definitely run more than that. It is also stationary. I was able to use my Apple TV because I wasn't moving rooms. However, when I moved back to Boston last year and I knew I was working in 3 different rooms, that is not reasonable for me to buy 3 different Apple TVs or set it up in every room that I go to every day. And so just weigh your options, decide what's best for you, knowing your space. If you're going to use the Apple TV, this is how you would set it up. It's pretty straightforward. On your iPad, just pull down the right top menu and you'll see a selection for select screen mirroring. Then you'll choose the device you want to screen mirror it to, and it will automatically project your iPad to your projector. As many of us are moving to remote learning, let's talk about how you can continue using your iPad virtually. So a while ago, I asked teachers on my Instagram, what online video platform are you using this school year? About 98% of teachers said either Google Meet or Zoom. And so these are the platforms that we are using the most this year. Regardless of the platform you use, my biggest tip for all of you, and I said this earlier, is making sure you have 2 devices and that both of your devices are logged into your Google Meet or Zoom call. This way you can make sure that what your students see is actually what you intend that they see. Okay, so if you're using Google Meet as your video platform software this school year, the way you connect your iPad to become the whiteboard in your classroom is as follows. So go into your Google Meets meeting, click the 3 dots on the top right corner, click Present Screen, make sure you're selecting Google Meets, and then click Start Broadcast. Now you should be streaming to your students' computers. Once it says that you're streaming, go to your Notability and you can start presenting your lesson. This is an example of your student view. I think it's really helpful to just be able to see it on the student's end as well, so you know what to expect. If Zoom is the video platform your school is using, this is how you'll connect your iPad to the Zoom meeting. Go into the Zoom meeting, click Share Content on the top, click Screen, and make sure you have Zoom selected, and then click Start Broadcast. Once the broadcast starts, you can then go into Notability and start teaching. A quick note for both, if it shows you the microphone, make sure you have it turned on if you want your students to be able to hear what you're saying. This is what your students will see, just so that you're aware of what their end will look like. Other applications that you can use as well on your iPad are Google Classroom and EduCreate. I know a lot of you all have used Google Classroom before, but it's a really great way to post assignments and interact with students. And because it's also an app on your iPad, It makes it a lot easier for you to post those assignments, and even if you, let's say you finish teaching a lesson, you want to download that completed lesson, you can push that completed lesson onto your Google Classroom as well. EduCreate is another app that you can use on your iPad. It's a little similar to Notability. It's an interactive whiteboard, and it allows you to record, pull web pages, and do other really cool things for students on there. As we all start this school year, I know there's so many unknowns, and there's just so many things that even I am worried about. And so I hope this presentation provided you with a few tips and tricks that you can use as you start this school year, or maybe it got you thinking of a new way to implement a digital whiteboard into your online classroom. Regardless, I hope this presentation was helpful to you. I hope you're able to take away some ideas with it. And if you have any questions about how I plan to use my iPad this school year, or you have any questions as you set up, please message me at Math with Miss C. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, and I would love to help you out in any way I can. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. Bye.